Welcome to our episode on acupuncture. Today we're going to learn about acupuncture, which is a form of traditional Chinese medicine that's first written about 2,500 years ago in the Emperor's Classic on Internal Medicine, the Yellow Emperor's Classic on Internal Medicine, and is alive and well today. So acupuncture can do a bunch of things for you. The first thing is it can really lower your stress response and modify your cortisol. It can lower your stress hormones. It can calm your limbic system. So that part of your brain that's in charge of emotional reactivity, fear, can get calm from acupuncture. It can increase your heart rate variability, which is really great for your long-term health, but also great for emotional regulation. And it can really help you to feel calm and relaxed and profoundly affect how you behave. So today we're lucky we have Travis, our acupuncturist, with us who will be doing a live demonstration. But first I'm going to give you some examples of how we've used it, and then some of the history of our organization and how we met Travis, and then a little bit about my favorite research. So let me give you some examples first. And these are sort of interesting because I think they make the point not only about acupuncture, but about community acupuncture and the protocol that Travis has brought to us. So the first example is a fellow calls me and says, I'm having a really hard time. Can I come and see you? And I say, sure, come on over. And he wants to talk about some discussion he just had with his friend, which ended very negatively, and he was quite upset about it. And he really wanted to talk about a solution to what had happened. And he wanted to feel better by talking about what had happened between him and his friend. And in fact, he couldn't do that at all. His body was just not in a position to be able to have a discussion. So the conversation kept going back to threats and anger and yelling about his friend, at which point I said to him, I don't think your body's ready to have this kind of conversation. And I think if we went and got a treatment from Travis, that you might be able to do it. And so he agreed. Travis was actually closed, and he was in there sweeping up. We called him on the way over, and he said, sure, come on over, I'll give you a treatment. We went in, we had our treatment. Pretty soon, both of us were at least unconscious and maybe sound asleep, I'm not sure which. And when we got out of the chair, he looked quite different. And when we went outside, he said to me, you know, I haven't felt this way since I was a very little boy. So he just felt this sense of peace and calm. And I said, so what should we do about your friend? What do you want to do about that? And he said, well, you know, he was upset and I was upset. And there's really nothing to talk about. We'll both get over it. You know, acupuncture put him in the right state to be able to think that way. I couldn't have talked him through that because I tried. So it's really very useful for that kind of thing. And community acupuncture is different than acupuncture that's delivered in kind of a medical context. So most acupuncturists, you have to call them, make an appointment, you know, come next Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Well, for Dave in this situation, it would have been no help, right? He needed help in the moment. And so what Travis has put together is a community acupuncture clinic. And so you can walk in and you can get treatment when you need it. So really, the things to think about in terms of this discussion are how effective the treatment is, but also how available it is and how affordable it is. And I think we'll talk more about that in a bit. The second example is really about this kid, Allie, who has struggled her whole life. She's a very traumatized kid, really struggled her whole life with the capacity to regulate herself and kind of behave the way that she wants to. And she often gets overwhelmed and can't really do the things that she'd like. So we got her started in acupuncture, and when we start a new person in acupuncture, Travis actually comes to us. We don't go to the clinic. And we get all of the person's closest people, their support staff and family or whomever, around the table, and Travis gives us, needles all of us, not just the person, right? So not only do they get the benefit, but everybody else who's going to support them in going to the acupuncture clinic also gets the benefit and sees in real time what it feels like. So when she started acupuncture, Travis came to us, needled everybody. She felt pretty good. Everybody sort of appreciated it. And then after Travis left, she said, I said, so let's set up a regular schedule. And she said, I don't want to go. And I said, well, how come? She said, well, I don't think it'll help. I said, well, it just helped. And she said, yeah. So I said, well, is there something we can do to help you get there? And she said, well, if you go with me, I'll go. And it was really interesting to do that because I could see her, again, in real time, what it was like for her to go to acupuncture and then receive acupuncture. So she would actually get more anxious going to acupuncture than she was at baseline. But then when she got in, the acupuncture would calm her down. So we went for about 2 months together. And at the end of that time, she was really quite quiet in the chair and really was enjoying the treatments. And she said to me, you know, I'm good now. You don't need to come with me every week. But then about a month later, she invited me to go. And I went to the clinic with her. And initially, she had spent a lot of her time just talking, even when the needles were in, which is sort of inappropriate for the for the clinic. But Travis never complained about it. Anyway, after a month goes by and I go with her, she gets in the chair and she doesn't say a word. And pretty soon she's out cold. So she's so calm and relaxed that she's either unconscious or asleep. And at the end of the session, Travis starts taking the needles out. She doesn't budge. And he says, I have a really hard time waking her up. So anyway, it's really been quite effective and quite useful for her. And I think the lesson in there for us is that even if people don't appreciate it at first, give them the support they need to get there. And then over time, their body will come to anticipate the positive effects of acupuncture, and they'll be more inclined to go. Excuse me, and that's exactly what happened with her. The last example I want to use is about this young fella, Cal, who has autism. He's a mid-20s, 25, 26. I've known him for better than 10 years, but since he was a child, he's really always had GI tract problems. And many people with autism do have that, and certainly many people who have been traumatized have problems with their GI tract. So Cal had very large stools, often was either constipated or had diarrhea or some combination thereof. When he passed the stool, often it was very, very big and very painful and very hard. And in fact, you couldn't even flush him. They had to be chopped up to get him down the toilet. And around the bowel stuff, he often would get aggressive and hit the people who help him because he was in so much pain. And we took him to all the specialists there are in this part of New England, which includes some very big universities. And 5 or 6 years of treatment, monkeying his, medicine around really didn't help very much. And so we used acupuncture as part of an overall treatment plan. When you look at the research, they're interested in what does acupuncture do. When you look at what we do in the community, we're interested in treatment. We're interested in people getting better, so we give them the full court press. We may be using multiple interventions at the same time. So in this case, with Cal, we started with acupuncture 3 times a week. And that was really useful in getting his body just calm. But in addition to that, we had a probiotic. We used a kimchi, fermented vegetable, to sort of replenish the biome in his GI tract. And we also, if you remember the episode on water immersion, on swimming, we also put him in the water every day. And that would lower his cortisol, the stress hormone, lower his vasopressin, activate his GI tract. And it's been about 4 or 5 months now, and we haven't had any aggression, and we haven't had any toileting problems. So he's been able to go regularly. Pretty fantastic. And again, I think acupuncture is a great standalone treatment, but certainly very useful in terms of a larger treatment plan. So let me tell you how we got into it. In our town here, like many small towns, there's a farmer's market. And the farmer's market is really busy with vegetable stands and pizza makers and a band and a bandstand and lots of kids running around. And I make my weekly entrance with my 3 grandchildren and usually an entourage of some sort. And it's quite a busy place. And so one day I'm walking around looking for my usual fix of arugula, and I encounter Travis, who's set up under a canopy right in the middle of the park, in the middle of all of this action that's going on. And he's got 4 or 5 chairs, with people in them, all of whom are in a state I would like to get people in. Very relaxed. And so I stopped to talk to Travis, and he explains to me not only the model of community acupuncture, but also the NADA protocol, which I'll talk about in a second. So I had looked into acupuncture previously, but the problem is that, again, with the medical model, not only is it, I'll see you next Tuesday at 10 o'clock, but it's at least $75 to over $100 per treatment, which is a significant amount of money, obviously, and really is unaffordable for most of the people that we know who could take advantage of it. Certainly unaffordable if you're going to do it 3 times a week. So he explained to me the community acupuncture model. There's about 200 clinics around the country now that provide this model, and it's both a business model and a treatment model. And so it was really alluring to think that we could just walk into the clinic and get a treatment when we needed it. And the other thing is that, you know, essentially I have people who are dysregulated, whose behavior is sort of unmanageable, and then I want to approach them and tell them we're going to stick needles in you. People don't respond all that well, but Travis had the NADA protocol, which is these 5 ear points. They're sympathetic, Shen-men, liver, lungs, and kidneys. But it has a real calming effect on the body. And it just takes under a minute for Travis to put those needles in. And so it's really very quick and very effective. So he told me about those things. I went back and reviewed some of the research, and we gave it a try. So we have now a long-standing relationship, I think. I was at his clinic one day, and the group I work with, we had all the chairs filled. It was all of the clients served by my agency, plus a number of the staff. So his whole place was filled with our folks. And people have reported just great results. So I'm very appreciative of him and what he's been able to do for us.